भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Hare Krishna. So we are reading from Canto 5, Chapter 11, entitled Jad Bharat instructs King Rahugana, and text 12. You can repeat behind me. Kshetragya eta manaso vibhutir jivasya maya rachitasya nityah avirhitah kvapi tirohitascha shuddho vichaste hi avishuddha kartuhu. Kshetragya eta manaso vibhutir jivasya maya rachitasya nityah avirhitah kvapi tirohitascha shuddho vichaste hi avishuddha kartuhu. Yes, you may recite. Kshetragya eta manaso vibhutir jivasya maya rachitasya nityah avirhitah kvapi tirohitascha shuddho vichaste hi avishuddha kartuhu. Kshetragya eta manaso vibhutir jivasya maya rachitasya nityah avirhitah kvapi tirohitascha shuddho vichaste hi avishuddha kartuhu. Kshetragya eta manaso vibhutir jivasya maya rachitasya nityah avirhitah kvapi tirohitascha shuddho vichaste avishuddha kartuhu. Vaishnavis. Kshetragya eta manaso vibhutir jivasya maya rachitasya nityah avirhitah kvapi tirohitascha shuddho vichaste hi avishuddha kartuhu. Kshetragya eta manaso vibhutir jivasya maya rachitasya nityah avirhitah kvapi tirohitascha Shuddho vichasteya vishuddha kartu. Shetagya, the individual soul. Etaha, all these. Manasaha, of the mind. Vibhutihi, different activities. Jivasya, of the living entity. Maya rachitasya, created by the external material energy. Nityaha, from time immemorial. Avirhitaha, sometimes manifested. Kwapi, somewhere. Tirohitaha cha, and not manifested. Shuddhaha, purified. Vichaste, see this. He, certainly. Avishuddha, unpurified. Kartuhu, of the doer. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The individual soul bereft of Krishna consciousness has many ideas and activities created in the mind by the external energy. They have been existing from time immemorial. Sometimes they are manifest in the awakening state and in the dream state, but during these sleep, unconscious or trance, they disappear. A person who is liberated in this life, Jivan Mukta, can see all these things vividly. Purport: as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Kshetragyam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. There are two kinds of Kshetragya or living beings. One is the individual living being and the other is the supreme living being. The ordinary living being knows about his body to some extent, but the Supreme Paramatma knows the condition of all bodies. The individual living being is localized and the Supreme Paramatma is all-pervading. In this shloka, the word Kshetragya refers to an ordinary living being, not the Supreme living being. This ordinary living being is of two kinds, Nitya Baddha or Nitya Mukta. One is eternally conditioned and the other is eternally liberated. The eternally liberated living beings are in Vaikuntha Jagat, the spiritual world, and they never fall into the material world. Those in the material world are conditioned souls, Nitya Baddha. The Nitya Baddha can become liberated by controlling the mind, because the cause of conditioned life is the mind. When the mind is trained and the soul is not under the mind's control, the soul can be liberated even in this material world. When it is liberated, one is called Jivan Mukta. A Jivan Mukta knows that he has become conditioned, therefore he tries to purify himself and return home back to Godhead. The eternally conditioned soul is eternally conditioned because he is controlled by the mind. The conditioned state and the liberated state are compared to the sleeping, unconscious state and the awakened state. Those who are sleeping and unconscious are eternally conditioned, but those who are awake understand that they are eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Therefore, even in this material world, they engage in Krishna service. As confirmed by Srila Rupa Goswami, Iha Yasya Hare Dashe. If one takes to Krishna service, he is liberated, even though he appears to be a conditioned soul within the material world. Jivan Mukta Sauchyate. In any condition, one is to be considered liberated if his only business is to serve Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swavadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpadarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvayevacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Hare Krishna. So first of all, I want to thank you all for being here this morning and giving me this opportunity to share something about Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm feeling very blessed here, having the blissful darshan of Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra and Gaur Nitai. So thank you for allowing us to be here. The verse which we are reading today, there is so many important points being made. I'll try to touch upon as many of these points. So Prabhupada is writing here, those who are in the material world are conditioned souls nitya baddha. And what's the main conditioning? He says, the main conditioning is the conditioning of the mind. And he says here in, when the mind is trained and the soul is not under the mind control, the soul can be liberated even in the material world. When liberated, the person becomes Jivan Mukta. Now this statement, the eternally conditioned soul is eternally conditioned because it is controlled by the mind. It's controlled by the mind. So I think the whole section, these are instruction of Jad Bharat to King Rahugana. And there is a lot of emphasis here on how the mind functions and how the mind conditions us and how we can be liberated. So I'll speak something about the mind also, because I'm sure in last few classes also this must have been discussed. There could be some repetition, but the whole process of Krishna consciousness is to mend our mind, to make our mind favorable. Therefore, even if there is some repetition, it's good, because our main process is to mind our minds or mend our minds, either way, to become Krishna conscious. So first of all, do we have a whiteboard? Do we have a marker? I need your help. Draw a line, a straight line with two arrows, like negative x-axis and positive x-axis. Yeah, one of you will have to help me. Huh? Oh, English, okay. This is just a line. On the left side, put an arrow, put a dot in the center at the bottom of the verse. Yeah, at the bottom of the verse. Yeah, at the bottom of the verse. Yes, put the two arrows. Yeah, positive. Write positive on the right side arrow. Yeah, write the word plus. Plus. And minus on this side. And also put an arrow. And put a dot in the center. Put the dot in the center. Write 0 over there. Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. No, that's good. Okay, so just let all the devotees be able to see this. Okay, can you all see this? Yes. Or should it be fine? Okay. So, good. Thank you. Now we see, now this is the x-axis. We all have studied in mathematics, x-axis. This side is the negative x-axis and this side is the positive x-axis. Where does the negative x-axis begins? where does the negative x-axis begins? On this side, left side. There is no beginning. It's minus infinity, right? On this side, minus infinity as we call. There is no beginning of negative x-axis. Where does the positive x-axis end? There is no end. There is no beginning of the negative x-axis and there is no end of the positive x-axis. So this concept of eternally conditioned and eternally liberated is explained using a negative and the positive x-axis. This is, okay, so when we say Nitya Baddha, eternally conditioned, means there is no beginning of the conditioning. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given one good comparison to understand this concept, which is not easy. So he says, before I explain, I would like to ask you another question. Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu, do you know quantum physics? No. Since when do you not know? Since when do you not know the quantum physics? There is no beginning of ignorance. When I ask, since when you don't know, you cannot put a date to ignorance. Since when? Oh, we can't put a date, a negative x-axis. I never knew. Right? I know, we don't know in some life we have studied or not, but mostly, at least we can't put a date to ignorance. Since when are we ignorant? Well, we can't put a date. Negative x-axis is no beginning. So there Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, the cause of our bondage is the ignorance, and that is negative x-axis. Where does negative x-axis begin? There is no beginning. Therefore, the ignorance has no beginning, and therefore we are called as Nitya Baddhas. There is no beginnings of our ignorance, which is the cause of bondage. Therefore, we are Nitya Baddhas. This Nitya is on this side. But now, though the ignorance doesn't have a beginning, it has an end. The ignorance can be, it can be stopped, it can be ended. So that is zero, the end of the ignorance. That we are the body, we come to know we are not the body. That ignorance has ended. Now the positive spiritual life may not have begun. So therefore those who are Mayavadis, they want to end all the ignorance. They may come to the end of ignorance, but they don't begin a positive spiritual life. So now, the ignorance has no beginning, but it has an end. Knowledge has a beginning. Now we may have been in ignorance, but knowledge has a beginning. Just as we move ahead on the positive x-axis from zero, we begin the knowledge. Where does the knowledge end? It has no end. We can go on learning. And knowledge has no expiry. It's not that, when the book is, just like you have a medicine, you put an expiry date. Do you see expiry date of knowledge on any book? This booking is good knowledge and this knowledge will expire. And of course, the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam has absolutely no expiry. Eternal knowledge. Knowledge has no expiry. It's never ending. Therefore, the Nitya Siddha, eternally perfect soul, the perfection has a beginning. The liberation has a beginning. Just like knowledge has a beginning, the liberation has a beginning, but it has no end. Therefore we say Nitya Siddha. And Prabhupada said in one of his classes, of course he is saying in this purport also, this Krishna consciousness movement is to turn Nitya Baddhas to Nitya Siddhas. This is the Krishna consciousness movement. Okay, there are questions in the very beginning of the class. That's good. I haven't spoken for 5 minutes also, but good. I'll be happy to take the questions for this part. Okay, let's have some discussion. Even if the whole class, rest of the class is a discussion, I don't mind. Yes, Prabhu. Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu, am I right? Yes.
Nitya's father, if it can change and it's not Nitya anymore.
Nitya means beginningless ignorance.
But eternal means never.
Eternal means no beginning. Eternal is a Nitya on one side. Doesn't means the Nitya Baddhas cannot become Nitya Siddhas. Is eternal means here, Nitya means Eternally conditioned means beginningless ignorance. That's the meaning of Nitya Baddha. Beginningless ignorance. But even if, like another example is given, even if there is a dark room which is dark for millions of years, when there is a first ray of light, darkness can't say, I am holding this room for millions of years, how you can drive me away? Darkness can't, as soon as there is a first ray of light, even if the darkness has been there for millions of years in a room, the darkness will vanish at the first ray.
Okay, but in our language, eternal means no end and no beginning.
Sorry?
In
In
our
our language,
eternally means no end and no beginning.
that's what I'm saying. So I'm clarifying that concept now. That eternally conditioned means there is no beginning of when its conditioning began, when the ignorance started. We can't put a date to ignorance. That's the meaning of eternally conditioned as explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and also Prabhupada. So he says the Krishna consciousness movement is to turn Nitya Baddhas into Nitya Siddhas. Ignorance has no beginning, but it has an end. Knowledge has a beginning, but it has no end. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita, all the scripture says, Yad gatvana nivartante tad dham paramam mama. Here also Prabhupada says, when one is liberated, one never falls down. Very clearly in this very purport. He says, I am reading exactly from, the eternally liberated living entities are in the Vaikuntha Jagat, the spiritual world, and they never fall down into the material world. And this Krishna consciousness movement is to turn Nitya Baddhas into Nitya Siddhas. Well, it may take some time for you to sink in. You have to allow some time. Oh yes, okay, Yamuna.
Sometimes we hear about reawakening Krishna consciousness.
Reawakening, yes.
Yeah. And the concept that you were just showing is eternally illusion.
Eternally illusion.
Yeah, like eternally illusion.
Eternally, there is no beginning of our. That's what all the acharyas also says. Anadi Bahirmukh. The jiva has turned one's face away from Krishna. Anadi, without any beginning. There is no beginning to that.
But you should
Anadi Bahirmukh.
that if we're not created in Maya in that sense, then there is a point when we turn away from Krishna. And this
So we are looking for the point which doesn't exist. We are looking at for the point of where this negative x-axis began. That's the point we are looking for. It doesn't exist. So that's the difficulty. That's the difficulty.
cannot speak about reawakening.
Reawakening? No. Why can't we speak about reawakening? The ignorance can be ended. And the life of knowledge has a beginning. Knowledge has a beginning. Ignorance has no beginning. Therefore we are talking of knowledge. Reawakening is coming to knowledge. When we focus on ignorance and knowledge, it becomes very clear. Ignorance has no beginning, but can't ignorant person come to knowledge? That you have been ignorant throughout the life. Can't you come to knowledge now? And we always had the option to come to knowledge. That's the important thing. We always had the option to come to knowledge, to begin our eternal life. So eternal life has a beginning, but it has no end. Liberation has a beginning, it has no end. Therefore, this concept will help us reconcile. We have to reinforce this concept. It's not easy, but it takes time for this to sink in.
Yeah, just sometimes Prabhupada is also saying that eternally means for a very long time, and
Eternally means for a long time, since time immemorial, we can't trace it out. As simple as that. And all the other, this Chaitanya Charitamrit, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's bhajans, Jeev Anadi Bahirmukh. Anadi term is used in the scriptures. Beginningless. Just like the ignorance is beginningless. So it's difficult to reconcile. Therefore, Prabhupada would say, don't figure out where it started. Right? Don't figure out, get out of ignorance. It's difficult to figure out. We are trying to figure out where the negative access is beginning. That's our difficulty. You don't figure out where the ignorance began. You get out of the ignorance. Come to knowledge. begin a life, eternal life of Krishna consciousness, which has no ending. Which has no ending. Krishna conscious life is eternal. And there is no end to how much one can develop one's dormant love for Krishna, how much we can expand our service. Even in the stage of perfection, when we say prayojan in the perfection, it's not stagnant. There is no end. One continuously can expand one love and one service to the Supreme Lord, even in the stage of perfection. The positive x-axis has no end. Focus on that now. Right? We have to shift our focus from this side to that side. Fine. So, to some extent, at least, we are getting. You want to say something? Okay. Yes.
That we understand the scriptures mention how the fallen living entities often categorized as nitya baddha, and the eternal associates of the Lord, they are categorized as nitya siddhas.
Yes.
But this explanation then would not be applicable to the nitya siddhas because perhaps they never had a nitya baddha stage. Like this transition. It's not
Yes.
applicable to everybody.
So there are two kinds of nitya siddhas. One who become nitya siddha by sadhana, and those who are eternal associates of the Lord, who has never been nitya baddhas. So there are two kinds of nitya siddhas. But Prabhupada says, just like you may become a millionaire by inheritance, or you may become a millionaire by, you were a poor person, rags to riches. But then when you are millionaire, you are a millionaire. You can't say, this millionaire, has never been a poor person, is a millionaire always, and you are a lower category of millionaire. Because you've earned it, you were a poor person. Once millionaire, it's millionaire. You see the Fortune 500 magazine doesn't make a distinction between, there are two kinds of millionaires and so on. Of course, there is two categories we understand, but Prabhupada says then there is no difference. Once you are in the spiritual world, you are now eternally perfect. Because no one falls from the spiritual world. It is made very clear over here. Amazingly, if you study the pastime of the fall down of Jaya Vijay in the 15th and 16th chapter of 3rd canto, study all the purports very carefully. 3 times Prabhupada says the conclusion of this pastime is no one falls from the spiritual world. 3 times. Not once he says that one jiva can fall from the spiritual world, but 3 times he says the conclusion of this pastime, which is fall down of Jaya Vijay, the conclusion of this pastime is no one falls from the spiritual world. See the purports. Read all the purports of 15th and 16th chapter. 3 times this statement is made. Right? So therefore, when we are perfected, we have perfect our Krishna consciousness, we go back to Godhead. There is only one-way ticket. There is no return ticket. You cannot issue a 2-way ticket.
Yes. And how can you explain
That's the difficulty. Now again we are coming to the, where did negative x-axis begin? But I want to know that point. Otherwise I will not move ahead. Unless I know where is the negative x-axis started. Don't figure out. Get out of the ignorance. Get out of the negative x-axis. Come to the positive side. Okay, so this is a sensitive topic, but I thought I'll speak on it nonetheless, because Prabhupada is talking in this purport. Right? So at least some clarity we can have through this negative x-axis, positive x-axis, ignorance and the knowledge, some clarity, some reinforcement of what the scriptures are talking. Fine, so now I would like to change the topic a little bit for your pleasure. Mind is the main cause of our bondage. We know that we have 2 kinds of coverings, the gross body and the subtle body. Because the gross body is insubstantial, we keep changing the gross body. But the subtle body continues. When we go to the next destination, the subtle body, the soul is covered by the subtle body. The subtle body travels to the next destination. So the main cause of bondage is the subtle body, which is mind, intelligence, ego. And there is fourth element also described in Bhagavatam, which is chitta. Not go into the detail. Subtle body, out of the four elements of the subtle body, or sometime to simplify mind, intelligence and ego, three elements. Mind is the main element. So one element now. Subtle body mainly means the mind. Mind is the dawn. Mind is the main chief element because it controls all the senses. We see this world not as it is. We see this world as we are. Please remember that. We see this world as we are. When we say we are means what? We see this world through our mind, through the mirror of our mind. To give an example, a person, he looked through the window and saw the house opposite, and he said, "Oh, so dirty, they never clean their house." There was a maid who was working. She said, wait. She removed the spectacles of a person, cleansed the spectacles, and put it back. Now look, oh, it's a clean house. So we see the world through the spectacles of our mind. We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. We see the world through our mind. We should know that, actually. I'll give you another example. So how the mind creates most of our conflicts that we have in our life, or most of the miseries, most of the sufferings in this world are actually creations of mind. To give you one simple example, I stay at Govardhan Eco Village. Now it's an eco village. There are, a lot of green things. So there are some insects and some reptiles. Once a while a snake may show up, and so on and so forth. So once happened, the city children came and they were staying in one of the rooms. And suddenly they saw a lizard in the corner. And they panicked. And they said, "Oh, lizard. The housekeeping person came and they're trying to find out the lizard and try to, But the lizard, she went in one of somewhere she hid. No, beyond the reach. Beyond the reach. You can't take the lizard out so easily, because they hide in some corner. And they said, "We can't stay in this room with the lizard." I said, "No, this lizard is in this corner. She won't bother you. It's an eco village. We can stay together. We can coexist, You don't have to make a big fuss out of it." No, we can't stay in this room. Absolutely. So they have to be changed. The room has to be changed. And they were continuously looking. Probably the lizard should not come from that room to this room. They're so scared. And so these children were so scared, city children, because they will not see lizard often. Our village children, when they see a lizard, they run behind the lizard, and the lizard run out of fear of the children. The village children, they run to catch the lizard sometimes. And the lizard just runs away. So these children are running in fear of the lizard. And the lizard runs in fear of these village children. They have no fear absolutely of the lizard when they see the lizard. Absolutely, they are quite comfortable. They may run or they may just neglect. Right? Because they often see the lizard here and there and they're used to. Is lizard a problem or mind a problem? Yeah, we can just think about it. Through this simple example, if we can analyze, if we can just think about most of the situations which create trouble for us in the mind, we will find the mind is the problem. The mind is the problem. To the extent in the 11th canto, there is Avanti Brahmana. His story is quoted. He says, no, just imagine, the people were spitting on him. They were speaking ill words to him. First of all, even if someone neglects us, it's so painful. What to speak of speaking harsh words? Now, what to speak of spitting? That's too much. This is something unimaginable. And he says, Nayam jano me sukha dukkha hetur. He says they are not the cause of my misery. Actually, these people who are acting inimical way and so on. Nayam jano me sukha dukkha. They are not the cause. No, this person is suffering at heart, because when mistreated, when being spitted over, he's suffering. But he says they are not the cause of my suffering. Na devatatma graha karma kala. So in India, if you go to some astrologer, when you are having some difficult time, in India people go to astrologer, and the astrologer says your grahas, the planets are not in the right position. He says the planets are not the cause of my suffering. Some devatas are not favoring you, because the devatas are celestial controllers. The devatas are not favoring you. He said devatas are not the cause of my problem. Oh, the time is not in your favor. The time is not favoring you. You have to, many times we say, okay, the time is not in my favor. He said, the time is not the cause of my problem. Right? He said, mind alone is the cause of my difficulties. Mind, because everything else is perceived through the agency of mind. Mind is so powerful, it can make a small thing as very big. It can magnify, magnifying lens. A small thing can be magnified by the mind as a big problem. This is the mind. Or the mind has a power, a big thing can be just minimized and says nothing. This is just part of the life. It happens. That is the power of mind. That is the power of mind. So therefore he says mind, because everything else is perceived through the mind. My mind is the cause of my problem. And and if we can, in situations, if we can come to this conclusion, we will be able to conquer. And if we can separate and see the mind as the cause of problem, then the solution is half worked out, at least 50% worked out. Because we have come to the right diagnosis. Most of the time we can't come to the right diagnosis. We say, this person is the cause of my problem. This situation is the cause of my problem. This government policy is the cause of my problem, etc. We always identify external cause. We are never able to come to the main chief cause, which is the mind, because everything else is perceived through the mind. To give you another example, again, recently we had a Prayag Kumbh Mela, you must have heard. The whole world must have at least heard about it. Kumbh Mela, millions of people come. Not just Kumbh Mela, in Prayag, throughout the year, there is a Mela going on. Mela means huge gathering. Even every every year in the month of Jan, there could be at least a few million people visit every month. In the month of Jan, Magh Mela. Like there were 30-40 million people visiting. 30-40 million? More. Kumbh Mela? No. During the Kumbh Mela, total, during 1 month. So how much million it becomes? So at least 400 to 500 million people visited in 1 month's time during the last Kumbh Mela, which was held this year. This year in the month of Jan. Yeah, I was there. We were serving prasadam, cooking and serving prasadam. 400, 500 million at least. And every year in the month of Jan, so say 10% of that, 40, 50 million people visit every year in the month of Jan. It's called Magh Mela, which takes place every year. That's more than population of many countries. Right? 40, 50 million. So one saintly person, and so many people visit. So one saintly person was visiting during the Magh Mela. Jai Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maiya ki jai. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. And he took his bath. He took his bath in the Triveni Sangam. Triveni Sangam is where the Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati are meeting. The Saraswati is underground, invisible, but it's there. So he took his bath, and as soon as the person came out after taking bath, there was an envious person from another faith and he spit it at this person who just came out of taking bath. And this saintly person, he didn't say anything, he just went and took bath again. Came out, this person spit it again. He just went and took bath again. Third time, fourth time, fifth time. This took place many times. And finally his saliva dried. He could not spit any longer. This saintly person, he is just not saying anything, going and taking bath again. And this person finally fell at this saintly person's feet and said, I have never seen a person with such tolerance and patience as you. You tell me, how could you not, react and become violent and angry? He said, today is Ekadashi. Today is also Ekadashi, by the way. Today is Ekadashi. You made me take 108 times bath in Triveni Sangam. By your mercy. And Prabhupada uses this word, and this is there in the Bhagavatam also. I relate it to the Bhagavatam. By your mercy, internally at least, I could take bath in Triveni Sangam 108 times. Right? That's the power of the mind, perception, positive perception. And now this is not something, which is, one can say, this is a story in the books and the scripture, it doesn't happen in the real world. This is there in the Bhagavatam. When Mahatma Vidura, he's called Mahatma, when Duryodhana said, whip him out, leave him only with his life breath, whip him out of the palace. Third canto, where Duryodhana became very angry when Vidura advised Rashtra that this son of yours is actually enemy from the past. You consider him to be your dear son, but he's an enemy from the past. He will destroy the entire dynasty. Get rid of him. And this was overheard by Duryodhana and became so violent, so angry. And he spoke very harsh words to his uncle Vidura and he threw him out of the palace. Just imagine a lifelong of loyal service. Whole life Vidura has been very loyal. And at the end of his life, he is being thrown out. He is being sacked. And what's the pension? What's the retirement benefit? Leave him with his life breath. That's the retirement benefit he's getting. Right? Leave him only with his life breath. So externally his entire career is a total failure. This could happen with devotees also. He's a Mahatma Vidura, the great devotee, great soul. His material career has abruptly ended, has been total failure. He's been sacked unceremoniously from his service. Get out from here. Don't show your face. Whip him out of the palace. So his career has ended abruptly. But he's a Mahatma. So what makes a person Mahatma? Not that a person is always successful and so on and so forth. Response to this adverse situation is what makes a person Mahatma. Prabhupada says, though he felt pain, but he took it. This is the arrangement of the Lord. I have become attached to the palace life, or so on and so forth. Now Krishna is giving me the opportunity to free myself from all this palace, politics, diplomacy, bureaucracy, and travel to the holy places and enhance my Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada says, thus Mahatma Vidura thanked Duryodhana from within. Can you imagine? He thanked. From within he thanked. Kept his bow and moved out. Right? And went to so many holy places and enhanced his Krishna consciousness. That response makes him Mahatma. Right? He did not succumb to the negativity of the mind. Because the mind is by nature, projects negativity. Even if there is a small thing, the mind magnifies and says it's a big problem. That person may have done a small mistake. That person is no less than a demon. Right? Magnified. That's the nature of the mind. So in this way, the mind is, one has to perceive. Liberated as a path of liberation means we should be able to perceive the working of the mind. And always try to come, when your mind is agitated, try to identify the mind itself as the cause. If the mind is creating unnecessary agitation, it's not such a big thing. Mind is creating. If we can identify the mind as the cause, we are actually the winners. We are set on the path of victory. Set on the path of victory. So this is something about the mind. I am also working on my mind. So by sharing with you, it gives me strength to follow, what I am saying. I am not free from the wanderings of the mind and the wrong perceptions created by the mind and the difficulties created by the mind. But by discussing with each other, we give strength to each other. And by the blessing of devotees, that's the greatest force actually. The greatest weapon we have against Maya is Vaishnava's blessing. Right? We can overcome all obstacles when the devotees are pleased. So therefore, that's my purpose of coming here, to share something with you and receive your blessings so that we help each other on this path of Krishna consciousness and gain victory over this wicked mind and make the mind favorable to Krishna consciousness, and that's the liberation. That's the beginning of liberation, and there is no end to it, as we discussed. Right? Hare Krishna. So thank you very much. We have some time for interaction. If you want to share something, ask something. Yes, Jaram Prabhu.
I'm sorry to have perhaps not such an intelligent question, but it bothered me for a long time. Still, we have...
Okay, the microphone is coming to you.
Yeah, we have dementia, we have Alzheimer's, we have all these diseases of the mind. You could say of the brain.
Of the brain, yeah.
But
It affects the mind.
it affects the mind.
Yes.
And the question I have, if the mind is actually so powerful that it also creates our next body. So if we overcome this mind, if we utilize this mind in the right way, then we are in the spiritual world. If we are succumb to the mind, then we are in the material world. That's basically it. That's how I understood it now. Now, how does that apply to a person who's actually lost the mind? In the sense
lost the
of
mind,
dementia. Demens.
Yes.
Demens. There is no more mind.
Yeah.
Demens. How does that apply to that person?
Okay, good question. Good question, Jaram Prabhu. It's an intelligent question. You said it's not such an intelligent question, but I consider this question is very intelligent question. What about those who, kind of seems to lose their mind? First of all, again, we have to go to the cause of that. Their mind has externally become dysfunctional because the brain, for the mind there is some physical element. Just like there is eyeballs which help us to see, but there is a subtle sense of eye. There is a subtle eye. This is called like netra, and the subtle eye is called chakshu. There are two separate Sanskrit words. Chakshudan dilojai, chakshudan. Now someone may say, how can a person whose eyeballs are not in proper condition, how can the Guru's mercy can give chakshu? There are blind people who can get chakshu, the right eyesight, because a subtle eye of knowledge. Even the blind people can have that. So we have a gross eyeball, but there is a subtle sense of seeing. There is a subtle sense of seeing, which is not affected. Of course, the two are in connection. Now, physical seeing, we can't see if the eyeballs are not proper. But even if a person has the right eyeball, if the person doesn't have the subtle chakshu, the subtle eye, still person can't see. So there are two things. First of all, I want to make things, when the senses, in all the senses, there is like eardrum, but there is a subtle sense of hearing. sometimes that could be affected. There are gross sense and the subtle sense. That's one thing. So, how has the brain got affected? Because of the so many subtle impressions, negative impressions. I met one person who had Alzheimer's, and his son was telling me this person underwent these impressions. His elder brother used to always be very harsh towards him, chastise him. So therefore, anytime he would see anybody, he would be scared, then he would like to keep to himself. He became kind of loner. He would withdraw from people because certain people abused or were harsh to him, and because of being lowly, he went into some kind of in his own zone, being of loneliness, and that he said that loneliness became the cause of his Alzheimer's. So you see so all the impressions. So why has the mind become dysfunctional? The brain has become dysfunctional. It's also because of the impressions on the mind, which is more subtle. So all that is related, the gross and the subtle. But a person who is Krishna conscious, even though the brain sometimes may be dysfunctional, but his mind will not become dysfunctional. And the proof is, so many devotees, again I have seen with dementia and Alzheimer's, they will not remember who their wife is, they will not remember who their son is, but they remember Hare Krishna. They will respond to Hare Krishna, and that's what's matter. So Krishna is there with them. Krishna says, one who practices throughout the lifetime this process of Krishna consciousness, even if that person cannot remember me, I will remember that person. Aham smarami mad bhakta nayami paramam gatim. Lord Varahadev says to Bhumi Devi, if somehow due to some reason, the brain becomes dysfunctional, we are not able to hear sometimes, the ears may become dysfunctional, but there is a subtle hearing, and my devotee will still be able to hear the Mahamantra. By my mercy, I'll remember him, though my devotee can't remember me. So therefore, Krishna consciousness is the real insurance policy. The real insurance policy, even if the gross things are out of place, but Krishna will make sure the devotees achieve the perfection still. Right? Thank you, Hare Krishna. Okay, one more question we can have. Okay, Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu. And personally we could also discuss.
You can sing in your mind and you hear the whole song, but nobody can hear it. You cannot hear it with ears.
Therefore it is said, the mind is the master of the senses. The mind sees through the eyes. Sometimes you may, physically your eyeball may see someone and you may not see the person. The mind is somewhere else. So the mind sees, even the subtle senses which we have, it is the mind who is the master. He sees through the eyes. Mind hears through the ears. Your mind has been described as the chief element, the main boss. Therefore, the whole process of Krishna consciousness is to mend the mind, or to make the mind Krishna conscious. You're right. The mind dynamics. Okay, quickly we can have another question. You have a question, Prabhu? By chance? Okay, good. Yes, Devashri there.
Possibly for a comment.
Okay, yeah, good.
Because we have the example of the senior devotee of our yatra, Radhesham.
Huh.
He went on a hike and then he had a very fatal accident.
Oh.
He lost his consciousness in
Oh.
parts of his brain.
Oh.
And he was sharing with some of us that first he could not even remember who he is, where he is. But he remembered Hare Krishna. And he's a devotee and he's understands.
Yeah. And that's our eternal, connection with the Lord. That's what we need to remember ultimately. Thank you for sharing that example. Hare Krishna. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Okay. Yes, I will be the chair.
every other spirit devotee.
to not forget ourselves, but also
As Sri Vaishnav is meditated, Krishna Harinder Mishra.
so
Alles andere
Aber Video ist ja genau das. Ich erinnere mich nicht so vergessen. Und erinnere mich alles, was du siehst. Aber ich habe noch gefragt, und zwar, wenn man sieht, ja,
Hare Ram.
klar, der meint, man ist das möglich. Ich kann das auch.
Und dann sagst du, ich bin nicht der Mann. Das ist nicht
Und dann steht es auch.
ja, irgendwann schon, oder?
there will be the patient struggle and agony of the
Du weißt, er funktioniert, so er denkt so, überlegt so, und dann kann man sich nicht defend.
Aber irgendwie trotzdem.
Ja, aber du kannst ihn ja beeinflussen. Oder? Das ist eine Intelligenz, die du schaffst, oder? Du kannst mit der Intelligenz lassen. Du kannst es nicht sticken, das nützt nicht. Ich weiß nicht. Die Möglichkeit hast du. Und irgendwann wird es auch wieder kaputt. Also das kannst du gar nicht machen.
out of nowhere. Also there is Krishna's hand in the situation.
Also ich mache das oft, wenn das so oft so gesagt ist, so irgendwoher weiß ich warum.
This is
Ist so gut, das ist
also sent by Krishna, which has purpose here in wanting to be more dependent, go through the situation, when I go through the situation, Krishna wants to go through the situation, then with this acceptance, we are better equipped to deal with the situation externally. Internal acceptance empowers us. It shifts our mind from negative to positive. Without considering the person as a culprit, we see okay, the diseased person, the person way the person speaks, or so on and so forth. But inherently every soul is good. So we see the fault in the act but not in the person within. And with that positive frame of mind, knowing that what I'm going to also I deserve somewhere or sent by Krishna for my good. This internal acceptance will lead to better handle external situation, positive frame of mind, something good. extent and to what extent we are perceiving. So this is a mixture of the two. At least our auditors are used to purify our perceptions. That makes a difference.
Because sometimes it can happen, like even if you keep, because I had this experience that I was like, when I realized that there was some difficulty in the situation, and I know time heals everything.
Yeah.
With time, everything. But if a person has this, sometimes it can be perceived that, oh, you don't like me anymore. But the very notion that time heals, for me, I say personally, it has worked.
Yeah.
When I keep distance with time, everything crystallizes and.
Yeah, good. Just that we should know that if any situation, any person with negativity in us, it's our weakness.
It's there, so it's brought out.
So therefore, Bhakti Maharaj's golden statement is saying, if others' behavior troubles you, it's your weakness. If others' nonsense irritate your mind, then it's your weakness. Don't allow that. We have to work on ourselves. Because we can't allow other people to affect us with negativity. If we become negative by other people's words and thought, we are weak.
Like biting your own tongue.
Yeah. So we have to strengthen ourselves, and that's the way of actually growing. The more we look internally, even externally, the more we look externally, it's try to work on our own self, through mind, purifying it, giving the positive thoughts, see the things from my perspectives, more we progress. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Would you have time for that video I had spoken about? For
Today you want to do?
Yes, whenever
Okay,
you
yeah, today we can do.
have time, when you might be like.
Yes. Oh, Prasadam, yes. It's starting now?
Yes,
Oh. Oh, I thought it's 9 o'clock.
Mm.
I thought I'd do some.
No problem, you can send me a message.
No, we can take the time now. It should be good to take the time now.
It takes only 15 minutes.
Yeah. Will it be okay around 4 p.m.?
Yes, of course.
It's okay?
Yes.
4 is fine? Yes. We do 4 p.m.
Thank you.
You can do any change and then eventually find out which is.
Sure.
You can go on a little bit if the weather is good,
Of course.
and then you might go on and then come back. So if you do it for the negative, you will be okay.
Thank you very much. we have Kurmadev next to him. Then Upanishadadev.
That's a sword.
Behind him
Sword
is
and
sword,
club.
yes.
That's where they have sword and club.
Here we have.
And that's Kurma, there's a big mouth.
Yes, that depends. Mahakrishna Prabhu is a Shila Pujari. He's
Okay.
very attached to the Kurmadev. So he makes him very happy. Yes. And
Okay.
that's Lord Padmanabha. He is the Damodar Shila. Yeah. And he is the presiding Shila, the Pradhan Shila. So all our worship to all the deities goes through him. Because our worship is quite simplified.
Okay.
Because we don't bathe all our Chota deities. We bathe Chota Gornitai, yes, in a certain way, and then all our worship to Jagannath goes through the Shilas.
Govardhan, Kurma, Asanadev.
Padmanabha.
I was thinking, I was angry.
Yes.
Looks like, but who's that angry of that? Okay. But I was confused the sword and club.
Yeah, we're giving him sword and club.
He probably would have had in his hand. He had one hand. Hare Krishna. Hare Ram. Hare Ram. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Hare